Hey everybody, what's going on? In today's module, I have a good buddy of mine, Jesse Elder, and I am extremely excited. Me and Jesse were just talking about how excited we both are to record this video for you guys. I think so many people get so wrapped up in the tactics and the strategies to building a business. You know, what ad should I run? What should my prices be? What should I sell? What should my funnel be? All of those things. And I don't know how many experts would tell any of you this. I think me and Jesse are definitely two of them. But none of that stuff matters. None of it matters. You could have, and we'll get into why, but you could have the perfect strategy, the perfect mentor, the perfect advice, the perfect technique. And if you don't get what we're going to talk about today, if you don't get this under control, if you don't get this dialed in, if you don't get your mind in the right spot, you're finished. You're finished. We could take any aspect of life. Let's just take a sport that I've never played. Let's say tennis. Let's pretend Jesse's, Pete Sampras and the best tennis player on the planet, and I've never played before. If I'm on my mental game and he's off of his, I might actually be able to go out and beat him. Most of the time, the people that succeed in whether it's business, sports, any area of life, the people who can dial in what we're about to talk to you today, in my experience, they win every time. And if they don't win at first, it's just a matter of time before they do. So I wanted to make something special for you guys. I'm not an expert in the mental game. I have a lot of experience with it. I grew up with a dad that baked this into my brain from the very beginning. I've studied it kind of on and off, but it's not my full-time job. So I wanted to bring somebody in here who this is their full-time job. This is what they eat, breathe, sleep, dream about at night. And Jesse's that guy. If you guys never heard of Jesse, you need to go look him up. You need to find his stuff. I've known him for a while now. He's a good buddy of mine, and he's one of the best in the business at this topic. So, Jesse, thanks for being here.
Ryan, it's an honor, man. Really, when our conversations veered towards this experience, and especially as you were sharing with me, how many people are really taking their own future and their lives and their business and their family safety and security and their future into their own hands because of, this, let's just say 2020 happened and everybody is like, oh shoot, I can't just keep doing what I've been doing. And I mean, I have such a place in my heart for entrepreneurs and for creators, and that's who you guys serve. And we're going to have a lot of fun today in this conversation. And for those of you watching this, and you clicked on here, like, all right, let me see what this thing's all about. Yeah. I would invite you to be open to the idea that 30 minutes from now, give or take a little bit, you may be thinking and feeling about yourself. And thinking and feeling about your business, thinking and feeling about your opportunities way differently, with an almost complete reduction of any sort of irrational fear, replaced by a natural exuberance and this sort of love for life that we're all born with. It just sort of gets layered over as life beats you up a little bit. And if you're watching this, I don't think it's an accident. So listen with an open mind, and there's no beliefs that you have to have in place. You can think all the mindset game is just a bunch of BS, but you respect Brian. You're like, okay, let me see what this is all about. But we're gonna dive into some super simple actual techniques. It doesn't matter what your skill level is, where you're at in the personal development or spiritual growth game. None of that matters. All that matters is just listen with an open mind, and rather than asking, is this true or not true, just test it. Like you test everything else. I mean, you don't have to worry about, is it true? Just, hey, test it. If it's useful, then keep doing it. If not, no worries.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just for anyone who is skeptical of this stuff, number one, I'm glad you clicked on this video. I'm glad this is one of the models you want to watch. And let me just be upfront. I am the least woo-woo person you'll ever meet. I'm very black and white. I'm very right and wrong. I have a strict set of beliefs that I operate my life by. I believe them 1,000%. I understand that this world can kind of go off the beaten path and get really weird really quick. But what we're going to talk about today is just pure self-belief. It's the confidence. How do you get the confidence of, a LeBron James, who can be in, or a Michael Jordan, who can step into a pressure situation and not ever be phased. He's not phased by defeat. He's not phased by victory. He's not phased by going up against the Goliath of his sport. There's people, men and women on both sides of all walks of life, that have this ability to walk into a situation and just be fearless. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. There's plenty of things that I still today am terrified of. I hate speaking on stages. There's things that I feel unqualified to do, but I know I could get over those things, and this is how I would do it. But there are certain areas in my life, and business is one of them now, that I don't care who I compete with. Now that we're running Samcart, we're going up against some of the biggest companies in the world. Shopify right now is publicly traded, $120 billion market cap. They have way more people, way more assets, way more everything than Samcart has. And I'm coming for them. And it's just a matter of time before I get them. And I have found a way, and Jesse's going to give you guys a couple. I think we'll both probably give you a couple steps on how we've gotten there. How did you get to the point where you can look at something that you should be scared of and say, let's go there? How do we get to that point? So anyway, it's when you get these answers, I mean, anything becomes, the world is now your oyster. There's not a topic or a skill set that I think, I can't play. I used to play guitar a little bit in high school. I haven't played in years. But for example, I know that if I decided to turn everything else off and focus on that I could become a fantastic guitar player. I know I could do it because I know the path. I know what I'd have to do. Anyway, it's one of those doors. If you figure out how to open, you can open almost any door.
It's literally the key. And I know that by itself sounds like woo woo and too good to be true and The Secret and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things, and let's jump right into it. My early life, like since I was a kid, I did martial arts. And so you and I have that in common, the athletic sort of competitive background. And when I was 15, I started teaching. I got my black belt. And by the time I was 17, I told my parents, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I had a great advantage. I mean, I had two parents who basically stayed out of my way and said, we're sure you can do it. We don't have any money for you, but we love you and you can do it. And that was it. They stayed out of my way. Yep. And so when I was 17, I started teaching for a living. And when I was 19, I began competing in these, this is like when the UFC was first gaining traction. And so I was a bouncer, believe it or not, when I was 20 years old. For 6 months, I worked at this seedy little nightclub in San Antonio. And the club started having these fights. And it was Thursday nights, no rules, no time limit, no weight limit, and no safety equipment. So it's literally just get in there and see.
Like Fight Club.
Dude, it's totally like Fight Club, except we talk about it a lot because you want to sell tickets. And so I've been training martial arts since I was a kid, like 10 years, half my life. But all of a sudden it dawned on me, I can't actually fight. Like I can compete and I can win a tournament. And you have enough people tell you, hey man, good fight, good fight, good fight. By the time you're 20 years old, you've heard that a few hundred times. Of course, you're going to start to think, I must be a good fighter. But I had a fantastic evolutionary experience when some dude jumped me at a house party because he was just drunk and angry. And I was like, what's going on? All in a flash, I realized I don't know how to fight as I'm on the concrete with this guy like punching me. And I realized, wow, I'm a great martial artist, but I can't fight at all. And that was right around the time that these fights started happening at this club that I was working at. And I thought, man, I either have to find out if I'm good or I have to stop teaching martial arts because I'm totally out of integrity telling people that they can protect themselves when I, for myself, don't even know. So it was scary, man. It was scary looking at the edge of that decision because I knew that the consequences were a lot higher than just, getting scored on, in a game of tag, basically with, control and safety equipment and all that. And to shorten the story, I ended up adjusting all of my training. I began training jiu-jitsu. I began training Krav Maga and Muay Thai later. And I ended up doing really well. I ended up winning 9 matches, lost 2, and it was transformational. It was truly a baptism in reality, because I couldn't afford to hold on to theories and ideas that sounded good if they didn't produce a measurable result in the ring. So I became a fanatic about training and had pages and pages and pages of journals every week, from what drill, what technique, what equipment, how long were the rounds, what's my nutrition like. But the thing that eluded me is I'd still freak out, like in the days leading up to the match. I couldn't sleep. I was nervous. I was overwhelmed. I was anxious. On top of that, my personal life was non-existent. I was super shy, super awkward, never dated. And financially, I'm like, how am I going to even succeed in this life? Because I'm making like $6 an hour as a bouncer. So I had all that life stuff on top of the pressure of and the overwhelm and the fear of getting the snot kicked out of me in these fights. And that was the beginning of my like my mindset journey. And I began to understand that, you know, we all see the world through these lenses. And you can call them beliefs, you can call them, you know, a worldview, a paradigm, whatever. And I just thought, well, what if, just like I test training techniques and I test nutrition and I test training regimens and I test sleep schedules and I just find out which is better and then I just go with the winner. What if I were to test paradigms? Like that thought wouldn't leave me. And I thought, well, what if I just start split testing belief systems? And what if I just for like a month just act a certain way and like only allow myself to speak like this version of me? And what would that version of me do? And it was literally acting as if. And during that whole process, one of the things that I discovered was that if I could write down some of the things that I wanted, the act of writing it down, not typing it, not you know, getting on a keyboard, but the act of writing it down slowed my thinking enough, and it calmed me because it made me focus on the word that I'm spelling. And I would write out how I wanted to feel, you know, how did I want the match to go? And dude, it was uncanny how good that worked, because you can't be afraid and be confident in the exact same second. You can oscillate back and forth, but you can't be in one space, or you can't be in both moods at the same time. And so I began to journal heavily. I began to just get into breathing exercises and visualize and start to rehearse the match. And I'll be darned, man, if my training didn't start improving like crazy, I began to walk in already feeling like that trophy is mine. And all I have to do is just enjoy the match. And when I would feel that fear come in, like, what if the guy beats me? I would just realize this is just a thought that creates a feeling, and it's not useful. And so that was the beginning of the whole mindset thing. And it led to some really interesting tests and experiments, which led to some tools and to some techniques. And so I've applied these in opening a martial arts school. We went on to open a bunch of schools throughout the U.S. and ended up running a really successful business. We're doing about $3 million a year, and we had all these employees, and it was the ultimate life. And I also realized that like this isn't who I am anymore. I need to evolve. I need to move forward. So sold the schools. Ended up in 2013. I made a Facebook video. I had like 300 friends on Facebook. That video ended up getting more shares than I had friends. And next thing you know, I'm an internet marketer. And is the most organic thing. And I just kept applying these tools and then sharing these tools. And we've now had probably over 1 million people that have used these tools in the last 6-7 years.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, so for anyone who doesn't know my backstory, it's kind of similar how I sort of stumbled across this. And what you just said about how, you know, kind of beliefs can create feelings. And there's a saying, there was actually a book that my dad handed to me when I was 16 years old, was a fanatic about baseball. It's all I cared about, did not care about school, didn't care about anything else, did all right in school. It's not like I, you know, didn't care enough to fail out. But baseball is all I wanted to do. Wanted to play in the major leagues, wanted to go D1, get a scholarship. And when I was 16, that's when the game gets a little bit hard. I mean, the only guys left playing are, some of the best in your state or your school system. And I started to struggle quite a bit. Had a mega slump. Had never experienced a slump like this in my life. About half the season, almost the slump was so bad that the season was basically written off. Like I wasn't going to be able to play my way out of it and get back to being one of the top players in the state. And that fear just overwhelmed me, because now you were feeling not just that you're in this slump, but that slump now had the potential to ruin my entire dream. If I didn't finish this season with respectable numbers, you're 16 years old. This is when scouts are coming. If this leaks into the next season, I mean, your college career could be gone because of a couple weeks in the spring. And he handed me this book by Shad Helmstetter called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And I read the title and I'm like, what the hell is this book, Dad? Like this is the weirdest thing. I don't talk to myself. I'm not like, what do you think I'm doing in my free time? I'm not like, some psychopath. And he said, look, trust me, read this book and tell me what you think. And I wrote down something from that book. And I think it starts out with this paragraph. And basically the statement is, programming creates beliefs. Beliefs create attitudes. Attitudes create feelings. Feelings determine actions, and actions create results. And so you can directly tie whatever results you're getting in your life are most likely stemming all the way back from the results you're getting are a result of the actions you're taking. The actions you're taking are probably because of things you're feeling. Your feelings are determined by the attitudes you have underneath. Those attitudes are created by beliefs, and the beliefs are created by the programming that you absorb every single day.
So good.
And if you don't believe me, look at today's political atmosphere. There's a lot of people that love or hate the president. There's a lot of people that love or hate one political party or the other. Why? Because we're inundated with programming every hour of every day that tells us to hate the other side, that the other side is evil, whatever it is. And I don't want to get into politics, but whether you believe it or not, it's true. If you grow up with a mom or a dad who tells you you can do anything, or a mom or dad who tells you you can't do anything, that you screw up every time, you will believe those things deep down at some level, and they will determine the beliefs you have about yourself, the beliefs you have about the world around you. Those will determine your attitudes, feelings, actions, and results. And it was after reading that book that that clicked for me, and I said, that is true. It's true for me that I have, these, basically you don't hear them, but I'm in the middle of this slump. And so I'm stepping into that batter's box, worrying about the failure that is potentially ahead in the next couple minutes. And that worry is programming. The only thing going through my head right there in that moment is negative. What if I fail? What if there's no succeed word in there. It's all, what if I fail? What if, I'm not ready for this? And so the book then leads into, how do you counteract that? And as corny as it sounds, how to counteract that is essentially either find a way to be around other people or be programmed by different sources, or do it yourself. And usually do it yourself is one of the only good options, because there's not a TV channel, there's not a friend at that time that I could go say, hey, just sit here and tell me I'm the best baseball player to ever live and convince me that I'm ready for, the next game. And so I actually ended up creating, and I created a module about this in our one-page masterclass. I actually showed the cards. I created a set of note cards. It was like 30 or 40 note cards that essentially had the beliefs that I wanted to create for myself. And so they were just little statements that I would, at the beginning, throughout the day or before every game, would just start to read. And at first I felt incredibly stupid doing this. There were little statements like, I'm the best player on the field. I am never nervous when I step into the box. This pitcher knows I'm about to basically own him out here. I'm not scared of this guy. I'm more prepared than he is. I'm, all of those sorts of statements, telling myself, I had to basically say, I don't believe any of these things I'm writing down because I'm not doing well right now. But if you asked me a month from now, if I got out of this slump, what would I be thinking? Those were the statements I started to write down. And slowly but surely, it didn't take long. I mean, if I remember right, it was a couple days to when I started to think, not necessarily that I believed all these things, but those negative things were gone and I felt different. And about a week later, my performance started to change. And not only did I get out of that slump, by the end of that year, was rated first team all county, started getting looked at by college scouts. And by the next year was one of the top 2 players in the state, got almost a full ride to a D1 school. Went on to play college baseball, held on to all of these things, had a rough go my first couple of years in college, had to go back to those roots again, transferred to a different school, kind of remade my entire mental game again, and went on to be first team Rawlings All-American, won the Gold Glove Award for the best center fielder in the country, got looked at by semi-pro teams, and excelled beyond anything I could have thought that I would have done. And that was why. The mental game is the only reason I did what I did. I'm a 5'8" white guy. I was not gifted with the athletic body of some of these professional athletes that you see. I think that I got more out of what I was given at birth in this small frame. I think I was able to pull more than most guys that are gifted with a 6'5", huge athletic body. And it was because when I stepped on the field with those guys, I was not afraid of them. And the only reason why was because I convinced myself, essentially lied to myself for a couple weeks to reverse what I believed about myself and my ability to perform.
Brian, this is one of the best examples I've ever heard of somebody consciously creating their belief system from scratch. And what a gift that you didn't have this athletic frame, because in so many cases, talent makes people lazy.
Yep.
They can outperform anybody else without even trying, and that's the problem.
Yep.
I experienced something similar. I'm 6'3", 145 pounds, and I'm fighting dudes that are like 180, 190. I fought one guy who was 260. He was a wrestler, and I choked him out. And it was like, what just happened? It was like a matrix moment, but it's all this. It's like you can bend reality to your will. Yep. And what you just laid out there is probably the best example, step by step, I've ever heard of somebody moving from that place of doubt and fear and anxiety and overwhelm and just consciously moving forward. And I heard something in that too, which I know you already know, but for the viewer and the entrepreneur and the person who's getting their message out there and the person who wants to see those sales coming in every day, and that's why you guys are here. Something Brian said is really worth even replaying this part of the video again, because what we're talking about here is confidence, and the story that Brian just shared was of manufacturing his own confidence. But you heard where he said it took about a week before it started to show up in the level of performance. And Brian, if I heard you correctly, you said you first noticed that the negative thoughts were sort of diminished.
Yep. And
you could feel that kind of getting turned down. In my observation or in my experience, I would see that as a displacement. Like you just turned up the light a little bit.
Yep.
And when you turn up the light, the shadow kind of goes away. There's not a dark switch, there's not like, you don't want to turn the light off and you turn on the shadow switch. No, you just turn on light or turn off light. And shadow is darkness. It happens in the absence of light, just like fear happens in the absence of confidence, or the absence of love, or the absence of this enthusiasm. And something so powerful in this, and this is the massive mistake that it hurts my heart, man. I see so many people making this every day. They think confidence is a requirement in order to win. They think that confidence is like a prerequisite. Let me get some confidence, and then I'm just going to sail off into the $10 million launch, or I'm going to sail off into this life that I've envisioned. But man, confidence, and I'm curious to get your perspective on this. Does confidence just like you snap your fingers and you have it, or does confidence come from evidence? and seeing that, oh, cool, that worked. Now I feel a little better. Let me see what else I can do. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a blend. I mean, for me, I think I'm more confident today than I've ever been because I have, in the business world, a decade of trial and error. I know that if I fail, it's not the end of the world, that I can figure anything out, that anything is figure outable.
Yep.
And I had a ton of confidence when I first got started because I knew I can figure anything out. These guys that I see succeeding online, they're nothing special. Like, they don't have PhDs. There's not some secret science that everyone knows that I'll never be able to figure out when it comes to building my business. If this guy or this girl is succeeding online, they're human beings. And that belief kind of comes from sports. They're realizing that, some of these huge guys you see on the field, they're human beings too. They can trip and fall. You can strike them out. You can tackle those guys. Everything is doable. So I think the confidence for me, when you're first getting started and you don't have that experience to draw from, it can be a little manufactured. I manufactured my own confidence when I was in the midst of that slump. But I wasn't, exuding confidence. I just slowly got rid of that negative and kind of got back to equal. And
which is a huge upgrade. Like, from
exactly,
being grade, you get up to neutral. Neutral is a massive upgrade.
Yep, exactly. And then once the success started coming a little bit, and the success can be so small to give you that extra boost. I mean, in business, just getting your first website up, not even making a sale or making, $100,000, just those little tiny wins, those start to snowball. And all of a sudden, you look back and you're 5 years in and you've done great things. And now your confidence is even higher because you've been through ups and downs and you can make it through all those things. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, at least in my experience.
I love that. And I really appreciate your use of the word blended, because so many people have been sort of seduced and maybe even tricked by the personal growth industry. And I don't think there's anything malevolent about it. I don't think there's anything bad. It's just sort of what happens. You start selling books and courses and tell people what they want to hear, so they give you money. And it's like, yeah, but does your stuff work? I mean, does it produce a result? And that's the challenge with so much of the law of attraction and The Secret and all that. It's great material. Like, it's high frequency material. You read it, you're like, oh, okay, cool. That feels good. But it completely attracts a level of mindset that doesn't want to actually enjoy doing the work, doesn't want to enjoy the process of creating the thing. And so many people are just focused on the outcome, and I just want to snap my fingers and get the money, get the health, get the vacation, get the house, get the car. But it's a process of enjoying all of that. And as cliche as it sounds, the journey really is the reward when you're doing it right. You're not in a hurry to get to some finish line because it's assured, it's already going to come. And so I love your use of the word blended, because it is a process of mastering your own mind and your own emotions. And then from that place of self-mastery and that place of presence and that place of being focused and being inspired and being hungry, then you go and engage with the world, and everybody can feel it. Your customers can feel it. Your vendors can feel it. Your partners can feel it. Your affiliates can feel it. Everybody on social media can feel it when you're operating from that core that's unshakable, versus trying to game the world into giving you what you think you need to then feel confident. It's a total hybrid approach, and I completely agree.
Yeah. So if we're a half hour in, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but if someone's sitting here listening to this and they say, look, I'm on board. I think I understand that my mental game is probably not an asset to me right now. It is probably holding me back. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm working as hard as I can. I'm trying to find as many mentors as I can, whether it's me or you or other courses they bought or software they own. But what can I do right now to start to take that first step forward so that I can get to the point where, I sound like Brian or Jesse, who seem to be able to not be scared of anything, to go after anything they want and know that they're going to get there, what would those one or two or
Yep.
three steps be you'd give them that they can start right
Yep.
now as they go through the rest of this, program, learning the tactics and the strategies, but what can they be doing on the side to bring the mental game along with it?
Sure. There are three things, and you can do it right now. If you're watching this video and you've got a pen or a journal, you can even just type it out on your keyboard. But there are a couple of things that are very simple. Literally only takes you a couple minutes. And if you do these when you feel inspired, if you'll do them, even if you don't feel inspired, but you still do it, you'll find your way back to your center. And that even sounds like a mystical, weird term, but it basically, when you feel like you, and when you feel like, you're not being yourself. So there's a very simple process. Since confidence, as Brian said, is a blended experience. A part of it you talk yourself into, and then you start to see some results, and then that backs up this belief that you might have been creating, but now you've got evidence, and then it just becomes this beautiful spiral, keeps going. One of the challenges is that, especially as an entrepreneur, you've got millions of things going on, is when you finish your day, and just check in with this. If you're watching this video right now, you might be watching this at night, you might be watching in the morning, but just think about your life in general. When you are wrapping up your day and you're heading to sleep, what's your general state of mind? Are you scrolling on social media? No judgment. I mean, we've all done it. Are you watching TV? Are you reading? Are you spending time with a loved one? Like, what are you doing, and what is your general frame of mind? I would be willing to bet that a lot of what you're thinking about as you're going to sleep is tomorrow and next week and next month and these looming deadlines that you've created or agreed to. And this is actually one of the biggest killers of confidence, because the only place that we can actually draw confidence from is from the past. You can envision a future, you can visualize your success, and that can create some good juice and some good energy, but not if you're basing it on a past where you feel like you failed. And so the technique is super simple, and I highly recommend doing this at night, and I'll share why in a moment. But you basically take out your journal, and you can do it right now. You write down 3, 4, or 5, no less than 3, no more than 5. What were some accomplishments or appreciations that happened during the day? And those two words are used pretty intentionally, because appreciation doesn't always mean a big outcome. It doesn't always mean that you got the sale or that you got the deal or whatever. Appreciation could be that, hey, I had a great conversation with a family member. Well, that might not be a massive accomplishment, but it sure is a nice part of your day. Maybe it was that you chose to eat, follow some nutritional plan instead of just grabbing fast food. And if that's what comes to mind, write it down. Again, when you're writing things down, you're slowing your focus and you actually get to feel it. This is how you literally construct a belief, because we think in pictures and words. So when you're creating those words, you're literally rewiring your brain. So you write down appreciations and or accomplishments. And the reason why I suggest doing 3 as a minimum is because we all have these sort of emotional trains that we're on. You've got the emotional train of overwhelm, or the emotional train of anxiety, or the emotional train of fatigue, or the emotional train of well-being and feeling good. But you can't just switch tracks. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed and feeling fatigued and anxious or whatever it is, then just writing down 1 or 2 things isn't going to be enough to shift your focus. You got to have that like time under tension. When you're working out, you want to build some muscle. You can't just do a couple of quick reps. You've got to multiply that. So writing down 3, 4, or 5 appreciations or accomplishments will completely restore your confidence. It restores your sense of well-being, because what you're doing is you're giving yourself proof of what you've done well. You're giving your brain, which your brain is magnificent, and it's also this sort of dumb engine that's just like marching around looking for stuff to do. And your brain is also future focused. So you're always going to be looking for things to do next, no matter how great you did. I mean, think about it. How many times have you ever had an amazing win like a great deal went through, you succeeded, you cut out some crap in your life, and you had that hallelujah moment. It felt so good. Well, how long did that hallelujah moment last, honestly, before you were like, what's next?
Yep.
And that's how our brains work. So by giving yourself 3, 4, or 5 appreciations or accomplishments, you're taking stock of your existing history. And in doing that, you're actually calming down your brain, and your brain feels like, wow, I did a good job. So
Yep.
if you do this before you sleep, you'll actually sleep way better because you just unhooked from the momentum of the day and you satisfied your need to accomplish things. There's the second component to this is after you write down 3, 4, 5 things that you appreciate, you're going to be feeling better. I promise you. And feeling better is the whole key. Once you know that you can make yourself feel better, you can build any belief you want. Because what is a belief? It's just a feeling you keep feeling over and over and over again. That's it, until it's got its own momentum. So just like Brian shared in his story about going from that slump to this incredible success, which then formed the foundation for the success that you're continuing to create, this is the exact same thing. So after you write down these 3, 4, 5 appreciations and accomplishments, the next thing you do is you write down how you want to feel when you wake up in the morning. Dude, I've talked to thousands of people about this. Literally nobody has said, yeah, I do that all the time. Like it's not one thing that we think about.
Yep.
But it is such a critical part of your day, because when you wake up feeling tired, anxious, irritable, grumpy, man, that just sets the tone and the trajectory for your whole day. And we've all been there, man. It's like there's not a person on the planet that hasn't experienced that.
Yep.
But when you wake up feeling, you just feel that, like I feel good for no good reason at all. I just feel good. And then that's the lens that you're looking at the morning through. You're going to start to see things differently. You're going to treat people a little bit differently. You're going to treat yourself differently. You're going to talk to yourself differently. And so setting your trajectory in the morning is so important, and it's so easy. And all you have to do is program it before you go to sleep at night. This is how I want to feel when I wake up in the morning. I want to feel recharged, rejuvenated. I want to feel energized. I want to feel confident. I want to feel clarity. I want to feel loving. I want to feel grateful. I want to feel ambitious. I want to feel ready to take on the world. Whatever, man. It's your life. Like, you write down literally whatever you want. And when you wake up in the morning, I guarantee that you're going to be feeling different. And I've this simple technique, these 2 things: write down the appreciation accomplishments, followed by how you want to feel when you wake up in the morning. I had one woman who attended a training that I did, and she had incredible anxiety and insomnia because of some serious trauma that happened. I mean, some horrible stuff happened in her family, and her brain connected not wanting to go to sleep because she always woke up in the morning feeling terrified. And so I said, look, you got nothing to lose. Try this thing. And man, she'd taken drugs and had hypnotherapy and therapy and all these kind of things. And those are all great. There's a place for all of that. She literally did these 2 separate things, texted me the next morning and said, this is insane. Like, I slept all the way through. I actually had good dreams, and I woke up feeling better than I felt in like 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
It's like, that's how powerful the mind is, man. We just, and last thing I'll say on this, because I know you got a ton of wisdom to add to this. The hardest part for so many of us is accepting how easy this really can be. Add to that an entire multi-billion-dollar industry that is intent on convincing you of your insufficiency. Let's sell you a problem, and if you can agree to it, by the way, we've got the cure. Whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's traditional therapy, whether it's a lot of educational institutions, and a lot of the teachers that are out there, they may be well-meaning, but there's all this heavy focus on what's wrong with you, and let's fix what's wrong with you. Well, what if you're not deficient in any way? What if you just had some great evolutionary experiences that are actually over now? So let's get present, decide what you want, and watch how quick things snap into place.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. What you actually, that first point reminded me of the tweak that I made to my kind of self-talk mental programming game when I got into college. So I had those cards, which just kind of brought me back to remembering that I was actually good at the sport I was playing. I was just in a funk. And then when I got to college, I got into graphic design and some video editing stuff, a lot of the skills that we still use today. And I was lucky enough to have a dad who filmed tons of my games all through high school and all through college. And I got my hands on a lot of that footage. And I don't know where I got the idea, but I basically said, look, these cards are so important to me, but even these are just words. What if I could visualize myself succeeding on the field? And I remembered I have all this footage. So I spent a week going through all this footage, creating my own highlight reel of myself.
Dude, that's amazing.
I found, clips of me stealing bases or making diving catches or getting hits. And remember, I edited out all the shit, all the at-bats that I struck out. I mean, those were gone. And so I had this 1-minute clip with cool music that got me fired up. And I'd watch it on the bus on the way to every game in college, and would just watch myself succeeding over and over and over and over. And it was insane. I mean, I basically got off that bus saying, there's no one out here who can touch me. I just watched myself go 10 for 10 on footage. I can't, it's real. I did those things.
Yes.
And it's so funny how fast we forget them.
Totally.
And here's how I just found, so I have a library or a kind of like an album on my phone of those self-talk cards. So I took pictures of them. So these are them. So if I'm on the road and I forget them, and the second thing you said made me remember this one card that I made. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. And so the card says, in 2010, I made $60,000 a year. This was my full-time salary when I got out of college. I hated this job. It was a government job here in DC. Absolutely hated it. So this card reminds me of where I've come from. It says, in 2010, I made $60,000. I knew no one with a business. I had no website. I had no product. I've never sold anything in my life, and I had no dream. And it just reminds me of how far have we all come. And look, I don't care. You don't have to be sitting here with a successful multi-million-dollar business to have come far. Like anyone watching this business, most likely, or anyone watching this video, most likely a year ago, whenever you first got started, there was a point where you didn't even know this world existed. You thought you were at your full-time job thinking this is it, that the next 40 years or 20 years is going to be me being miserable. I have no ability to take control of my own income. And whether or not you're there or not, you most likely have done things already sitting right here watching this video that a year ago, 10 years ago, however long ago it is, you didn't even know were things. You didn't have a website. You didn't know you could even make money online. You weren't inspired. And even if all you have right now is a website and a finished product, and you've made 3 sales and you feel like you're struggling, remember where you came from. Remember that time where none of this was even possible. You didn't even know it was there. And remind yourself of that. And every time you cross, we talked about not celebrating. I watch guys like Bill Belichick win a Super Bowl, and he parties for 15 minutes with a smile on his face, and the next morning he's talking about next year, and he's back to grumpy Bill with his terrible hoodies. And it's like, did you even enjoy what you did?
Right.
And I think we all have to do that. And not that you have to sit and party for weeks at a time. Obviously, at some point we need to move on and try to tackle the next thing. But write them down. Do what Jesse did and write them down. And don't ever lose sight of every one of those benchmarks, those accomplishments that you've made. That's like when people talk about having, dream board and stuff up on your walls. That's what I try to have on our walls here at the office, at my house, so that every day I'm reminded of how far I've come.
Yes.
And it's just huge. I mean, talk about the brain being a powerful thing. It's when you remind yourself of what you've done, no matter how small it is, I mean, the possibilities just open up. And it's huge. So
it's really limitless, man. And I mean, when I think about I love, there's so many great things you just said. And this is definitely something that those of you watching this should go back and hear this over and over, because you're going to hear something a little bit different every time. And when you talk about taking things for granted, it's like you made those sales, you set up your website. Well, that used to be on your vision board.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's like in your past. So if you can just remember that, as we get kind of ready to wind down, and there's one more technique that I'll share before we sign off. But your story about the highlight reel reminded me of something that I did last year. We'd been scaling and doing pretty well, and I just knew it was time for a reset. It was time to just kind of take things back to basics and really get connected to the art of what I'm doing and to the audience and all of this. So I was traveling, and I for years have just run my business with this. If I've got a phone, I'm good to go. And even a laptop, I was like, on principle, I only want to operate things with my phone. And so I also needed to generate some cash because we had some, pretty good investments coming up. And I kind of just wanted to challenge myself and see, how much value can I create for people, and how fun can we make it, and how impactful can we make it? And so I started, when I was writing, doing the evening ritual or routine, whatever you want to call it. And I write down those 3, 4, 5 things, write down how I want to wake up in the morning, but I did an extra step in between those. And I wrote down, I call it my subconscious mind, the part that's always, processing in the background. And I just wrote down, I'm ready to receive the next kick-ass idea. So whenever you're ready. And I just turned it over to my subconscious mind. Literally, man, like 3, 4 days, I got the idea. I had this program title pop in. I had the content popped in. I was like, wow. So I'm traveling. I ended up on layover in Stuttgart in Germany in this like 2-star hotel with terrible Wi-Fi, and I'm scheduled to go Facebook Live. So I grabbed my phone and ended up doing a 3-hour live stream. I didn't even know what the offer was going to be. Like, I'm like just riffing here, but it was such a collaborative experience. And I felt so, this is going to sound a little woo, but I felt guided, man. I felt like my future self had already threaded the eye of the needle, had already emerged victorious and connected with all these amazing people. I was already seeing their results that they were going to get in their minds, their bodies, their bank accounts, their business, all this stuff. And I felt like I was leaning into that versus trying to climb some mountain that I hadn't climbed before, if that makes any sense at all. It was like deja vu. And about an hour and a half into this 3-hour marathon, the offer pops in, and I just told everybody, here's the deal. There's 150 spots. It's $1,500 per person. If you're watching this on the replay and you go to register and you get your money back, it's because we're full. But if you're in, if this resonates, jump on in. Dude, we sold 143 spots at $1,500. And then I went and caught my plane that night and ended up back in Austin. And I was like, what just happened? Dude, it was effortless. That's the thing. And it wasn't fake it till you make it. I mean, I've got experience and I'm qualified, and I know what I'm doing when it comes to this work. But for everybody watching this, you have a level of qualification too. And if you just, I'm not talking about blind faith where you just cross your fingers and hope it works. Set yourself up. Use what Brian shared. Make your own highlight reel. Put yourself in this space of whether you call it programming your subconscious or talking to God or your future self. Hey, whatever language resonates with you, go for it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. But if you're not doing it, someone else is. And someone else is programming your mind. Someone else is, like me and Brian, we're going to show you some Facebook ads. But there's a lot of conditioning to keep people stuck, and you just don't have to play that game anymore. You can unstick yourself.
There you go. Yeah, this was awesome. I really do encourage anyone watching this to watch it again, take notes, and I'll just repeat what we said at the beginning. This is the most important part of this entire game. I think if you had lunch, dinner with any successful entrepreneur, if we just stay in the business world, and you really got to know him or her, you'd find out they have this side of their life under control. Maybe not always, but they understand it. And even if they don't, that they either had great parents, or they have great friends, or they have great mentors that are doing it for them, and they don't even realize they are confident. They do believe in themselves, that because other people are basically helping them remember that they can do it. As corny as that sounds, it is a common denominator I found across the board, whether it's athletics, whether it's anything in life, that the top performers usually are the ones that have the mental game figured out. Yeah, I can't stress enough. So watch this again and again. We will, if you want to get kind of more from Jesse, we'll put some links below this video. He's got a ton of great resources that we'll link out to, so you guys can get more from him if you really want to dive in. Again, I'm not the expert. I'm just the student who takes stuff like this and goes and implements it.
You're the ultimate example, man, because it's like you don't get lost in the techniques and the theories. You're like, got it, and then you go and build your vision, and that's really what SamCart is for. I mean, and this is, you and I haven't talked about this. This is a shameless plug because I'm a client and a fan, but no freaking way I'd be able to live my life without being able to whip up a link, pop it into Facebook or Instagram, and go and help some people. And you're only one offer away from helping somebody who is in a situation that you can solve. And from that perspective, your cash flow is a direct reflection of your contribution. And so if you don't like where your cash flow is at, it just means you haven't contributed to the level that you're capable of. So applying these techniques like Brian's talking about and that I'm sharing here will help you to help a ton of people. And in closing, man, so much appreciation for you and for this experience, and can't wait to see what happens for people. And for those of you that are watching this, just a reminder maybe that there's somebody who's watching you. Somebody's looking up to you. Somebody's looking to you for leadership and guidance. And maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's, former coworkers of the job that you're on your way out of. People are watching you, and they will benefit from your success. And so there's never a reason to feel apologetic about succeeding. I think that's why we were born.
100%. Awesome. I appreciate it, Jesse. Thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're busy, but this was hugely helpful. So hope everyone takes it to heart and implements, and let us know how it works.